When you are out and about, there is a very good possibility that you may have an encounter with a child who has autism spectrum disorder. You yourself may have a child who has autism, or you may know someone with a child who has autism. It is very important to know the steps and how to properly communicate with that child. Chuck Grassley once said, "What makes a child gifted and talented may not be getting good grades, but a different way of looking at the world and learning." Now let's look at what exactly autism is. According to autismspeaks.org, autism spectrum disorder is a common term for a group of complex disorders of brain development. Autism's history. According to WebMD, autism spectrum disorder has been around since the early 1900s. It is rooted from the Greek word auto, meaning self. Now let's look at some statistics of autism spectrum disorder. About 1% of the entire world has autism spectrum disorder. The prevalence in the United States is estimated at 1 in every 68 births. Now that we know the history of autism and what exactly autism is, let's look at some characteristics of children with autism spectrum disorder. According to CalgaryAutism.org, some social skills of children with autism may be that they make very little or no eye contact, they have resistance to being held or touched, they lack of personal space, and they either prefer to be alone or they are overly friendly. Some behavioral characteristics of children with autism is that they may have verbal outbursts, they have difficulty attending to some task, they may have extreme fear for no reason, and they may have an obsession with a certain object or idea. Ways to interact with children who have autism. It's very important to remember to be patient when you are interacting or communicating with a child who has autism. According to the University of Rochester Medical Center, it usually takes a child with autism longer to respond. Another thing to remember when you are communicating with a child with autism is to not stare at them. Sometimes what children with autism may do may seem weird or different to you, but it is normal to them. When speaking to the child, make sure to use your words clearly. Don't use too many words and excess of words, or do not use words that the child may not understand or comprehend. This may confuse the child and scare them. And lastly, learn what the child loves. Many children with autism get fixated on a certain sport, such as basketball. They may love shapes. They may love dinosaurs, or they have an obsession with a certain toy. Learn what this child loves or what they love to do, and base your conversation off of that child's object or idea. These are just a couple of ways to have positive interaction with a child who has autism. Now that we know what exactly autism spectrum disorder is, the history of it, the statistics, and the characteristics, you now will know how to have positive interaction with that child. It is important to remember that although a child with autism may be different, it is important to know that they just want to be treated like a normal person. Children with autism have the biggest hearts, and they just want to be loved. It is important to remember the things that I have told you today, so that the next time you have an encounter with a child with autism, you can have a positive communication or encounter with that child.